This is the Human First AI Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague at Avenue 9. You can find us at avenue9.com, where we do all things AI marketing in a human first way, which means we're going to get to know you. We're going to interview the founder, the top salesperson, your best clients. We're going to build a contextual database that we can then use to build the strategies and tactics around AI to help you grow your business faster. One of those tactics happens to be AEO and AI search visibility, how you can get found in your searches now that are not going through Google. They're going through AI, right? Matt, our guest this week is Matt Ruffner from optical.ai, a partner of ours here at Avenue 9, and he's got a really awesome tool that he built himself. We're going to talk about it, but you can get your free AI trust score to see how AI trusts your business, and you can get a free AI search visibility report at optical.ai. Link is right below wherever you're watching or listening this. Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. Happy to get into it and talk, AEO, GEO, AI, SEO, LLM, SEO, whatever you choose to call it.
is one of my favorites, for sure. And Old McDonald does AIO.
EIEIO, yeah.
So all of those terms really just mean AI search visibility. And like I mentioned there in the intro, over 50% of searches now have moved to some sort of AI, whether that's Gemini through Google and AI summaries, first, or going directly to ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, and searching there before they go to Google and do a regular internet search. I'm curious to know, you and I have talked about this for hours already, but for the audience, kind of what's your takeaway so far? You've been in the SEO game for a long time. What do you feel like is the most meaningful part of this sort of search revolution?
I mean, my biggest takeaway so far is that, especially for people who have already been familiar with or working in SEO, we already know that like SEO is changing, like best practices in SEO, Google updates are changing and Google updates are coming faster than they used to. And I think with AI search and AEO, best practices, what we know and what we don't know and what we think is the right move is going to be probably double or even exponentially faster in the AI search world than it is in SEO. So, my biggest takeaway right now is like, hold on to your seatbelts. We're kind of taking this a day at a time, and
I mean, new models are getting pushed every 3 months, which is like a whole new training set that can really shake stuff up, which is maybe how often would you say like major Google updates like that happened? Like once a year, really every kind of 3 to 5 years, I would say.
Man, it used to be like major Google updates. I think, 6 months, and then in the recent years, you would see big and small updates to, both happening like every 3 months or a couple months. And then it seemed like on any given Tuesday, Google could drop a new update in recent, years. So
But now with
it's
AI,
definitely
I
picked up
think
the
you're right.
pace.
That's like at least in a third where we're seeing major, new models every 3 months, but we're seeing updates, changes, like tweaks to the model as we go on, new features and feature sets. So where,
Yeah.
you couldn't search for something, or AI couldn't do images and now it can do images, or it couldn't do, voice very well and now it can do voice perfectly. And like a lot of really big changes that change the way people use it. And so I think you're right. That's a great first lesson, which is like kind of, you don't have to throw out the rule book, because a lot of the same great white hat principles for SEO apply now. But you do have to rethink the way you're thinking about it, because it's changed significantly from even just 2 years ago.
Yeah. And what you said about SEO is right, in that like there is a lot of overlap, at least right now, in like what good GEO, AEO, and what good SEO looks like. We know there's a lot of overlap in best practices there, at least right now. And so another big takeaway there is like for business owners, especially that understand that SEO is important. um, understand that it's not worlds apart from, AEO and GEO are not worlds apart from SEO, while there are some differences, but getting started now, um, as in the name of being proactive is going to probably pay dividends rather than waiting till this thing gets much bigger.
Yeah, and I think trust is the word that connected the two of us, because I think that's the biggest thing is like, if you're trying to build a trust with humans and with AI, recommendations and models, or build a reputation out in the world, that's not something you can just flip the switch on later. This isn't like, oh, we just go through and optimize our website and then the pages are done, so we can check that box. This is something that takes time. And so we need to be
Yeah.
building a reputation while they're kind of building the tools like you are to figure out how to do AEO and what that means for the world. And I think that's a big difference than kind of what we have experienced before in marketing.
Yeah, no, it really is because, just for the audience to kind of give a little bit of background on myself to kind of qualifies this. I have a long career in marketing. I also have a long history of being an entrepreneur, and through entrepreneurship, found that I really like the marketing side of things a lot. And then I eventually worked as part of an in-house team for a big e-commerce company. Um, Various certifications, and then I went on to do agency work for a marketing agency where we primarily did SEO and then PPC. And I said all that to say that both business owners and agencies will understand that up until recently, and even still, we will see trust as it relates to marketing heavily relying on like reviews. It's all about your
Mhm.
reviews, right? And what I found through building Optical was that the AI engines look at a lot more than your reviews when they're deciding whether to recommend you. And that was a very interesting light bulb moment for me. Um,
Yeah.
because I was kind of just doing test data and things, and I was asking about various big companies that are very reputable, and it was like, well, they do have good reviews and people like their products, but there's several articles about poor business practices and poor
Mhm.
work conditions, and like those things don't necessarily come up in Google reviews. And so there's a lot of different factors as far as like brand trust when it comes to AI search that are very interesting.
Yeah, I relate it to that the AI is treating trust more like humans do now, where the algorithms were a little weird. They were kind of looking for measurable, easy, low-lying fruit, which made sense for where we were at the time. I don't need to give the whole history, but
Yeah.
Google started looking at your website and your keywords, and then they were like, "Oh, we can't take your word for it at all. Like all of you
Mhm.
are cheaters and liars." And so then they
Yeah.
started looking for easy scores like reviews and Angie's List ratings and other, publications that link to you and other stuff that
Yeah.
would like get reputation. But now we're in a world where AI can sort of be more critical about it and understand the human language. So rather than
Mhm.
just looking for that 5 point star, or you got a 4.2 and this one has a 4.9, now it can look at those reviews and say, well, some of these reviews, like we do when we were looking for my girlfriend and I were looking for a hotel, and some of the reviews are just like, you can tell, just snobby visitors that are like, oh, my warm cookie wasn't as warm as it usually is when I
Yeah.
stayed at this Marriott. And you're like, okay, well, I don't care about any of that. Like, the hotel's fine. Another one had better reviews, but their negative reviews were like, there were cockroaches, we had to fix our own plumbing in the the
Yeah.
bathroom, and like the
Yeah.
place has upkeep issues. And you go, okay, well, that's different. I can actually trust that first
Yeah.
hotel better, even though it had lower overall scores, because the complaints were different. And AI can look into that now and read sentiment. And I know that's a big
Mhm.
deal of what you've worked on and baked into your tool too, is that
Yeah.
like when AI mentions you, it's not just the 1 to 10 ranking of where you fell in the SEO list now of the blue links. It's actually, well, they might have put you number one, but they put a big warning on it and said, don't buy from
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, it's not enough to know, and I learned that very quickly in trying some other tools and building mine. It's not enough for agencies and for business owners to know, is AI mentioning you and where are like, are you first or last? It's you got to know what they're saying about you. You know, what does ChatGPT actually say about you in this context, and what does Claude say about you in this context? Because you could be first on the list, but it could be starting that prompt response with a warning of like, let's start by saying don't go to this brand, and then here's actually the good options. So it's, ranking first, while often is a good thing in the responses, there are edge cases in some contexts and situations where it's maybe not great. So the sentiment
Yeah,
is
and
really
even if it's
important
not,
there.
in the response to the customer, it can be in the stuff that it's considering of whether to give you a
Yeah.
recommendation in that number one spot too. So I think, obviously worst case scenario is AI says don't buy from them, but even in that, it's looking at all the bigger context of your business now, and it can kind of weigh differently than the algorithm what you
Mhm.
say versus what other people are saying.
Yeah.
Who's recommending you, what education and real like content you've brought to the world, which I think is also interesting. Is as we move through this discussion of like, are you answering FAQs? Are you creating original stuff? Is it new and
Mhm.
fresh? And like Google kind of used to reward, I think, older content, unless it was a news story or something. It would reward like, oh, this site's been around forever. They've got thousands of backlinks. Like this page about whatever SEO, best practices has been there for 10 years, and it's, people continue to visit it and find the answers they want.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like, well, SEO is changing so much. AI is going to look for who has the newer thing and who has an original human conversation about it versus like a generic scripted blog article stuffed with keywords. Is that fair?
Yep. Yeah, and the freshness kind of works in two different ways. So there is the like you were talking about how new models are released often, right? So there's all the data that the model is trained on. And that's where it can immediately pull a response from you if you are in that last training data set or prior data training sets. And then there's the other kind of branch of this where it will go out and search the internet actively before it puts together a response. And in both cases, you want to be present. Um, and what's interesting to consider is how people would prompt ChatGPT, for instance, if they want, like, if they were to find you. So if you're a product based business, um, people will very often do this thing where they say like, "What is the best X for Y?" Right, and
Yeah.
then in a lot of cases, ChatGPT will say, "Well, here's the absolute best, but it is very expensive, but it's also the best." And then it'll follow up with like, "Well, here's also the best value for the money. And then here's also one that's like a lower budget, but it'll probably get you by." In the product world, it tends to do a lot of those things. And I think especially um, as far as like product recommendation goes, we'll see that change and fluctuate the way it handles products very much over the next couple of years and maybe even the next months.
Yeah.
But it is important to consider like what is being searched or prompted in AI that would lead people to finding you.
Well, that brings us to another question, which is that's not easy anymore.
Mhm.
For the longest time, I don't know if it actually ended this way or not, but for like 25, 30 years, there were more unique searches into Google than there were repeat searches. And so kind of, people would type weird long tail keywords or create original things or ask for something and never been asked for before, more often than not. But now with AI, almost every search is a personal new search that's never been done before. So, AI or Google has those suggestions like, if you want to ask how old Tom Cruise is, like people have seen that before. We know what the answer is.
Yeah.
It's easily verifiable. Like they can autofill that. But if you start asking an AI a conversation about, what the best, product is for you, it's going to use the context of you and where you live and all the information you've shared. And
Yep.
now it's creating a new profile every single time
Mhm.
that the algorithm was kind of doing. But I feel like this takes to another level, because in the research we're seeing, like, we're getting these longer strings and longer questions, and people can use their voice to search so much easier, that like it's really
Yeah.
changing how people search, right?
The conversational search thing is a really good point, and I think, and I don't have any data on this, this is just a hunch, but I think we started seeing the longer tail searches, and I think that started happening when like alongside or in parallel to Reddit becoming more and more of an information
Mm,
source, because people started to realize, I think, that they could ask more longer tail things, and there would be like, someone on Reddit's already talked about this. And so once you realize that once, you'll try it again and you'll try it again, and then you'll tell other people to try it again. And I think over time it just kind of happens.
yeah.
Um, and then now with those conversational long tail keywords, they're gonna stick an AI overview in there. But that the problem that's presented for marketing teams is like, okay, well, we can't optimize for every possible long tail keyword, at least as it relates to AI search. And I think the answer to that is working backwards. And what
Mm,
I mean by that is, for instance, in a tool like Optical that I've built, or another AI search tool, is like getting data on where ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity are finding their information. So if they're primarily looking at Reddit for your niche, or if they're looking at Angie's List, whatever it may be, if you're like a home service, or if you're
yeah.
a realtor, they're probably looking on Zillow. So where are these authoritative places that they're gathering data, and be there and be present there and have authority there? Because that, I think, is going to be way better than trying to ever optimize for a million long tails.
I love that, and I think your tool at Optical that AI is way better than most at finding and putting those cited sources in there, because it's really hard to see and understand, sort of as a human, if you're not using a tool or looking at the back end where AI is pulling its information from. And the other thing I was going to say is, from my side of things, on the marketing side, I've also attacked it as like, keyword clusters, and thinking about like what a human would know you for, right?
Mhm.
If they go, okay, Mike owns a marketing agency, they can keep that in their head. And then if somebody else ever brings up, do you know somebody with a marketing agency? They go, actually, I do. I know Mike,
Yeah.
and they can make that referral, but they're not going to necessarily remember a whole lot of things about me. They might
Mhm.
remember my location, what my experience is, what my industry is, and maybe
Yeah.
two or three kind of clustered topics of like, oh, okay, he happens to be good at podcasting and YouTube and
Yeah.
creating courses. And so it can kind of, like a human would remember those kind of five key things. And I kind of feel like that's a great strategy for AI search too, is that we can't optimize for this long tail keyword. And I would be like, I want to be known for, roofing contractor in Kansas City, whatever, for something, longer, or a specific, but I can be known for something. I can
Yeah.
brand what I stand for and what I want AI and humans to remember me for. Have you seen that working?
Yeah, I think, as far as like what's gonna work, I guess the easiest way to talk about these things is kind of relate it to what used to work in SEO, or maybe still works, and then kind of how it's different in AEO. And I
Yeah.
think, in SEO, you used to be able to like laser target these keywords, and laser target your on-site, and then laser target your backlinks. And I think with AEO, really the bottom line is like, you know, knowing where AI is looking for information, and being a reputable, authoritative brand presence in those places that AI is looking for information, including your own website. And that's not to I want to be really careful not to just kind of toss out the idea of ranking on Google because like
Yeah.
still ranking on the first page of Google for meaningful keywords is very important for AI results because you better believe that the AI engines are searching Google still, you know,
Yeah.
especially Gemini, of course. Like, that's a given.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I think that, I mentioned we always hear these trends too of, like AI searches are going to overtake Google searches this year, but that includes Gemini, which is part of Google. And that
yeah.
doesn't necessarily include YouTube searches and other things that Google also owns. So they're still a big player and it's still going to work like that for a while. And also, um, I, I think people underestimate that, like, they still have the largest share. Like, I know when people, kept saying iPhone is the biggest, app marketplace and stuff. And you go, well, it might be the single largest, but there are way more Android phones in the world than there are iPhones.
Yeah.
And so, like, you can fool yourself to think that, like, oh, well, Apple must be the biggest. Let's do everything for Apple or let's do everything for Perplexity. And you're like, well, that's only 5% of the search market that you're missing.
Yeah.
And for, in reference to Perplexity, that's a big thing. I think you need a holistic approach and really to think about sort of more the trust strategy than any one place.
Yeah, there's a high level, and then if you were to get granular, there's all kinds of stuff that you could kind of really break out. Without getting super into it, a very interesting thing that I've been really kind of digging into lately is that like you should, if you have the resources, have an individual strategy for each engine because saying in my opinion, saying AEO and GEO and saying that this effort is going to work for all five or however many AI engines you want to be present in
Yeah.
is not the case. And actually, if you were to get a little more granular, there are specific things you can do for each engine by knowing where they look and what they consider. And my platform, Optical, helps very much with that. I don't want to get super into that part of it right now, but a big takeaway from that is I know business owners have heard this in the past, but I think now it's more important than ever is like if you can be on YouTube in a relevant way, be on YouTube in a relevant way. And some business owners will say, there's nothing for me to do on YouTube for my business. I encourage you to try. um,
Mhm.
YouTube while AI search is taking over, YouTube is the world's second largest search engine. And now YouTube transcribes every video that gets uploaded. So even if you're on YouTube and you're making YouTube content about your business and you think or you even see the views and hey, no one's watching, well, guess who's looking at those videos and those video transcripts when a relevant prompt comes up and the AI engines are crawling that. Whether humans are
Yeah.
watching it or not, the AI engines are they're understanding what's in YouTube, and they very much look at YouTube, especially Gemini.
Yeah, I think there's two lessons for me in what you just said. Number one is, I think we can you can use your tool, or you can think about it logically and say, okay, Grok and SpaceX or whatever the owning company is now owns Twitter, so it's probably going to use the Twitter data. Google owns
Yeah,
YouTube; it's probably going to use the YouTube
yeah,
data. And same thing with Facebook and Llama or the others, and partnerships. Like Microsoft owns LinkedIn, so they're going to check LinkedIn data.
yeah,
And I think that's a big thing. If you know who your customers are and you know where they hang out or which one they're particularly using, then great. Figure out what those sources are and go be there. The second thing you said, I think for me is the most exciting part for Avenue 9 is that all of them are looking for real human conversations, and YouTube
yep,
is the easiest place to publish those for free. So as long as you have a conversation like this and we're putting this on YouTube with the transcript, all of that is available data to train the AIs and to train even customers where to go to look for answers. And
yeah,
so it's really easy to make FAQs, it's really easy to do interviews, it's really easy to talk about your products or services or publish things about, from your vendors that are educational or industry news. And like you said, just be part of the real human conversation and not just generate more slop. Like now is the time to really create some sort of human transcript and get it out there. We also have had recently on the podcast people that are taking their customer conversations and then recording their inbound calls and turning those into FAQs and publishing them. Like it's
Yeah.
really a great way to create the kind of gold that everybody is trying to mine for
Mhm.
at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I realized that business owners will say like, I don't have time to do all this, or like maybe they have an agency and it's so in terms of like prioritizing things, it's like top priority is still like rank on Google. Like let's not leave that out. That's really important. Next priority for me would be, I think last time I checked the numbers, I think for like consumer type of like queries and searches, like ChatGPT is going to be it. That would be your like next priority. And then probably following that is going to be Google AI overview and Gemini because um like you said, the voice search, like, I
Mhm.
think that's and we'll probably get into this a little bit more later. I think AI search is gonna be integrated in those ways where it's like people just
Yeah.
hold up their phone and search, and they didn't choose what engine is there. It's just being put in front of them, and I think that
Yeah.
level of, like, integration, we're gonna continue to see that kind of permeate. And so in terms of priorities, that's kind of like the top 3 priorities along like with the, being on YouTube, that I would say, like, if you wanted to make it simple and take away like 4 to-dos, that's where I would really put it. And then, that's all subject to change, overnight too.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part of it is like we wake up tomorrow and Claude is the most used engine by far because, a headline dropped or a new model dropped or some two big companies signed a deal or an acquisition, like, it could all change overnight.
Yeah, and I think I would end with, encouraging people to be part of the conversation because it is different for everyone. And I think that's the hard part that, kind of if you're running a small business, you don't have time to think about too much. So you can either, talk to an expert, you can use a tool like optical, or you got to get into it a little bit and find out what's happening in your industry. Because the one you didn't mention that maybe I would add to your list is if you're a local business like the home services or restaurants, like obviously it's map listings, it's map
Uh-huh.
listings and reviews, and you want to be known like
Yeah.
dentists and other people that like who cares what somebody asked about how to diagnose a dental procedure, but when somebody types in dentist in my area or near me, you want to come up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Google Business Profile, map listings, reviews, of course, and if you wanna take it a step further, um like you said, be a part of the conversation, but be a part of the conversation in your local area. Like go out,
Yeah.
sponsor events, have news coverage, like local news coverage about your business. If it's like a new service you're offering, a new location you're opening, sponsoring charitable events or whatever they may be, do all those things and do them authentically, but help yourself by reaching out to news outlets and getting coverage on it. And that just, I mean, it helps you like I said, dividends, it's gonna pay for itself.
Yeah, love that. So I got we've gone through a lot and we still barely scratched the
I know,
surface.
man, there's so
But
much.
I wanted to ask you kind of your best guess. If you had to project out, I think for me there's like this horizon of like, do you ever think we'll get to AGI or super AGI? But how do you think it shakes out within our lifetimes? Let's say like 30 years from now is like I got to imagine every search is individual, but what do you think AI looks like? What do you think the world of business looks like that far?
You know, yeah, I'll put my tinfoil hat on, but I'll also draw a comparison in that, like, the way that I would kind of draw from on this hypothesis is when we first learned about being able to Google search stuff.
Mm.
and like where Google is now. Google and Google's search ability and search function is nearly integrated in every place it can be, right? So
Mhm.
everywhere that you could possibly want a Google search bar, you have one now. And in let's see, when did I first have a computer and be on the internet? I'm 32 now, so I was probably, I don't know, what,
Pretty young
2000
for me. I'm
and
a little bit
maybe
older. I would say like,
99 or 2000 for
yeah,
me, when we first like, "Oh, what's a Google? What's that do?" And
yeah.
I think we're like a few years into that same process respectively, where in 30 years, like you said, we will have an AI integration everywhere that it could reasonably be, and probably also places that it is completely unreasonable for an AI integration to exist.
We might
And
already
I
be there.
and I don't, maybe the speed with which that happens is different, but as far as like the trajectory and the series of events, I think it's going to be very similar from when Google became a thing to where Google is now.
Yeah, I would second that. And I'm starting to change my mind a little bit on some of this that there will be places where it doesn't fit, and there are problems that AI can't solve, and we're finding kind of more of those as we ask AI to do things in some jobs. And it's not going to
Yeah,
replace all jobs. Like,
it
not
can't fix
all
your
searches are
sink.
Google searches. Not everything is bought on Amazon. The majority of things are still not bought on Amazon. That's another one to look at. So like it is important to remember those things and look for the places where it does fit, and look for the places where it probably doesn't. And you should probably keep, the human hand-to-hand combat solving those problems.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I've seen and most people have also probably seen at least some example of this where like especially on TikTok or whatever it may be, like AI can do everything for you now. And I'm even as somebody that built a program that is very much centered around AI, I'm sitting here like just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, maybe
Like,
make your own sandwich. Maybe, take your
yeah,
spouse out on an anniversary dinner. You don't need to like have AI for that.
like
There's still
AI
things you
is
can.
not going to start a company, be a CEO, and make you a passive income overnight. And the people that are telling you that are probably lying to you or selling you a course. And maybe a few people out of like hundreds of thousands have tried that and like it's worked. But the reality is like there's so many things that like we're not there yet. Like just because it can try to do it, it's probably going to do those things confidently wrong
Yeah,
in a lot of cases.
I completely agree. So I think we'll wrap it up there, and I'll ask you how you can help us, and how we can help you with optical.ai.
Yeah, for everyone listening, as we said, Optical is an AI search visibility platform. It's for marketing teams, it's for business owners, and it's also for agencies. I definitely designed it from agency experience to be used by agencies and marketing teams. And so you can go to Optical AI. You can get a free audit. It's completely free. We just send you a report on like your visibility where it stands today, and how ready your site is for GEO based on a number of parameters. And you can also get a free trial for 14 days and check it out and really spend time with it. For the people that just want like a high level overview, we give you that. And for people that really want to get granular and drill down into the data, you can do that too. And so I'm really proud of it. I've spent a lot of time on it and making it really useful and actionable. I'm really proud of the action engine where we generate actions to say like, hey, you should do this to improve your site, and also the trust score that we created. So we're generating a 1 out of 5 trust score based on these prompts in this data of like how does AI trust your brand? Almost like a Google review star thing, but a little bit deeper, like we discussed earlier. And so,
Yeah.
even if you just want to maintain a free account, we still support the trust prompts and we'll kind of keep your trust badge rolling with fresh data and keep that score going for you.
I think it's really exciting. That's one of the things that got me into it. But I'll also just say from my perspective that Matt's built something really cool here. There are other AI visibility platforms out there, mostly created from people that were SEO people. And those
Mhm.
big companies kind of thought like SEO, and they've built really I feel like things that they can sell or things that were in their best interest, or even like other tools, just kind of plopping an AI visibility search in there because they figured out how to query Claude on the back end or whatever and create a report. And Matt's
Yeah.
really done the hard work from an SEO, AEO perspective of to build tools that will actually help you improve it, and not just say, oh yeah, sure, here's how much your brand's mentioned, or here's the queries where it's mentioning your competitors or something. I've seen a lot of stuff that just didn't solve my problem. So I highly recommend you go check it out at optical.ai. And if you need help with it, if you say, hey, that report's cool, but I don't know any of that stuff you just said to go do, that's when you talk to me at Avenue 9. You can find me, Mike Montague, on LinkedIn as my preferred channel. You can subscribe to this podcast on YouTube. As we've mentioned, that's important for me. And there's over, I think, 66,000 subscribers over there now. So you can be one of those if you're not already. And finally, avenue9.com, where you can learn all about the AEO services and offerings we have, or even pick up some training if you want to learn how to do it yourself. Until next time, keep going. Have fun, everybody.